Reflective Images Jewelry has announced as the first certified Fairtrade Gold American jeweler by Fairtrade International. The company has worked as the U.S. commercial liaison with Fairtrade International to launch the certification program while pioneering their own traceable and transparent sourcing practices in precious metals and gems. We have two of the primary principals for the jewelry company, Reflective Images Jewelry, and with Fair Trade Gold International, which is Greg and Mark. So, hey guys, thank you for coming on and this short notice to be on the program. And
Hello.
We appreciate you spending some time here. So, I wish we could kind of get everybody a sort of an overview. And Greg, why don't we start with maybe you can give us an overview of Fair Trade and the gold program, and then Mark, we'd like to find out what it was that brought you into the program.
Yeah, sure. I mean, thank you very much for having me on today. For me, the evening, but I think it's the morning for you guys. Yeah, Fair Trade International is an international network of producer countries as well as consumer nations that have come together around the basic idea of wanting to do economic justice for the poor. Historically, it began about 25 years ago, recognizing that very small producers around the world, particularly in agricultural commodities, were being marginalized, disenfranchised, and effectively getting ripped off in the global machine called economics and big business. So if you're a small coffee farmer or a small banana producer, you just weren't getting enough money for your product, for your crop. So Fairtrade created a system whereby they could use the economic incentives of trade to drive development improvements on the ground with producer smallholder farmers, as well as certifying guarantee to the consumer that the product you're buying is paying a decent price and is not ripping anybody off. Now, that essentially is the simple idea. What we did is take that principle and apply it to the first extracted product, which is gold. And gold is one of the most corrupted products in the world. We know it's also it's the underpinning of free market capitalism. It's a product which is highly controversial, highly polluting, highly socially marginalizing. And it's also the second biggest. Small scale mining per se is the second biggest employer on the planet after agriculture. So it was a product that needed a fair trade intervention. And that is what Fair Trade International and others like Mark, myself, and many other companies around the world have really focused on. How can we bring social and environmental justice as well as transparency and traceability to a gold product? So, and critically, it means that we not only are certifying sources to a standard which improves communities and health and safety, etc., but we're also guaranteeing that product through traceability to consumers who might be buying a piece of Mark's jewelry, for example. Yeah. And it's third-party audited. That is the most important thing for people to remember. It's not my word as a jeweler or my word as an artisanal miner. It's the auditor saying they are doing what they are claiming to be doing.
That's great.
So it's a really innovative way of pulling in the majority into the global supply chain.
Very cool. Mark, so how did you get involved in this process?
Well, David, I just want to say it's great to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me. What I want to say is I'm not really a typical business person. I like to tell people that I got my MBA working in Haiti for 2 years, where I was doing development work, running an orphanage, and also working in Mother Teresa's clinics, all as a volunteer. This event primarily has shaped how I view business, because the conditions in developing countries, as a result of the economic way the economic things are distributed and how it's set up, we need to create a regenerative-based economy. So from that point of view, I always saw business as a way to actually improve the world and bring more benefit back to the producer communities. And that's particularly true in fair trade. And that's one of the reasons personally why I got involved with this. Now, as a jeweler, one of the things that has always been most astonishing to me is the discrepancy between what the symbolism of jewelry is and how it is sourced. And let me give you a couple examples of this. In the 90s, for example, there were 3 million people who died as a result of the Blood Diamond Wars funded by the diamond sector. And yet, there's not one person in the diamond sector that has actually ever been held accountable for this. Now, similarly, there's gold that is sourced from tremendous situations around the world where there's pollution, where there's destruction of communities. And although I can't do anything about diamonds, what we can do is we can begin to provide the consumer, the person who's buying a wedding ring, an actual product that even in its sourcing represents the aspirations, the symbolism of what a wedding ring actually represents. And so that is one of the reasons why is I was trying to bridge the gap between what jewelry means for the person wearing it and what jewelry actually is sourced, how it's actually sourced in the actual producer communities. And gold is just the beginning of this process of bridging this connection between sourcing and symbolism. And also there's of course tremendous benefit to the small scale mining communities. When I was in Africa, I specifically saw people, and this is common, 15 million people around the world are involved in this process where they actually have mercury in this gold dust, and they're mixing mercury with their hands to produce this gold. We have to find ways of bringing this connection together. And also, there's one other reason. Today's consumers, particularly young people, are really concerned about how and where their sourcing is from. And in the United States market, if you add up the deep greens, which is about 17%, and the other people who are just concerned about green issues, you probably get close to 40, 50% of people who are very, very interested in a product like this. And so I've been working with fair trade for a long time. I visited the mines, and I'm really proud to be able to actually bring this forth in the United States and actually begin to create a new narrative of what jewelry can be and what it's about that actually bridges the gap and supports producer communities and offers consumers an audited process that they cannot find anywhere else.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, you guys are both doing some very good work there, and we thank you very much for sharing that additional insight and information about the gold and the fair trade and how you're, as a jeweler, bringing that all together. It's a great story, guys. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This is Business Insights. I'm David Matthews. Thank you for joining us.